Hello everyone. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I hope you got enough pizza and everyone's satisfied. There's water and all that stuff. I'd like to thank SJP. They did an amazing job getting this event together. Deanna and Atif were instrumental in setting this up, so make sure you thank them. Let's give them a hand of applause. Round of applause. So today, this is a very valuable opportunity to have a good discussion, and I would like to do that. So when you're listening to the presentation, keep in mind anything that you would like to say, because we're going to have the opportunity to ask questions and talk amongst ourselves. Let's treat this like a forum or a town hall, so we can be interactive. Samer doesn't want to come up here just to present and tell you. He wants to hear from you. So Samer is the president of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, the largest grassroots Arab American organization. Prior to that, he was an attorney at a New York law firm of Barnes, Lacarino, and Shepard, specializing in union-side labor. He received his BA in political science from Virginia Commonwealth and his JD and certificate in law and public policy from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. And currently he is admitted to practice in Maryland, District of Columbia, New Jersey, and the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey. Oh, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit.
It means a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah. He also served as a member of the National Board of the ADC and the former interim legal director. From 2006 to 2014, Mr. Khalaf was a member of the board of directors of the Arab American Family Support Center. And he was also the co-founder and co-chair of the New Jersey Arab American Democratic Caucus. He had the honor of being appointed by the New Jersey Governor, John Corzine, as the founding commissioner to the New Jersey Arab American Heritage Commission. He was also appointed to 2 state advisory committees. Okay, and he was also a member of the New Jersey Attorney General's Arab and Muslim Advisory Committee. So without further ado, please welcome our friend Samer Khalaf.
Thanks, Noah. First and foremost, I really don't like podiums too much, so I might move around. Hopefully I'll talk loud enough. I'm from New Jersey. We usually are loud, crude, and rude, but I'll try not to be crude and rude. I'm coming here today mostly as Max said, is to have a discussion with you guys. Tell you about what the ADC is, what we do, where we come from, and to talk to you guys to see what is of interest of you. What are the topics that are important to the college students? Speaking here today, Thursday I actually go down to Columbus and I'll be speaking to a group of students from Ohio State. But as a background, I don't know, show of hands, anybody know what we are, what we do, that's ever heard of us?
We have.
1 or 2? Wow, our bad. Okay. All right, well, the ADC was founded in 1980. Okay? We were founded basically to be the Arab, for lack of a better description, the Arab ADL. We do civil rights, we do discrimination work, we do work against stereotyping and profiling. We work with the government, we work with other groups. We were founded by a gentleman who was a U.S. Senator, James Aburezik. Senator Aburezik was a senator from South Dakota. There were actually 2 Arabs from South Dakota that became U.S. senators. Right? I didn't think there was even 2 Arabs there, but they both became U.S. senators. Senator Abercrombie was a senator at the time when something called Abscam was happening. You guys know what Abscam was? No? Anybody see the movie American Hustle? Yes? Mm-hmm. That was Abscam, or what the FBI called Abdul scam. Okay, called an Abscam. The idea was that the FBI was going to get a bunch of Latino and Italian FBI agents, dress them up what they thought Arabs should look like, and send them into the offices of elected officials to see if they can get them to take bribes. So they dressed up a couple individuals. the headgear and the whole shebang. They sent them into the office and said, "We are oil sheikhs from Lebanon." Anybody find that odd?
No, well,
A, the only oil in Lebanon is olive oil. Very good, but it's just not there. B, the only sheikhs in Lebanon tend to be religious sheikhs. There is no royalty in Lebanon. In fact, they can't even agree on the government right now. But that's what it is. So he saw what was happening. He saw the way the Arabs were portrayed. He got together with other Arab Americans, including Congressman Nick Rahal, Congressman Mary Rose Okar, Casey Kasem. Everybody know Casey Kasem. They all got together. They decided they're going to create something for the Arab, something for us, so that we can work on behalf of our issues, and we can have a voice within government, within the entertainment industry. So we can get our views out there. And so we can break down the stereotypes and help other Arabs with discrimination issues and that sort of thing. I myself took over the organization about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. Before that, I was practicing happily in New York City. But I did grow up in the organization. We have actually an internship program. We've had 500 interns have gone through our program, including Anthony Shadid. If anybody remember who Anthony Shadid was, the journalist who was killed or died in Turkey/Syria. He was trying to get out. But he was actually one of our, in fact, our internship program is named after him. So later on, if you guys want to talk about internships, we do have internships, our big program in the summer, where we bring interns down to Washington, D.C. We have interns for our legal department, for organizing department, for all the different departments we have. We bring you down, we work within our organization, and we also schedule meetings for you. So for example, we'll take you to the Department of State, we'll take you to the Arab League, we'll take you to a congressman's office, and we'll have meetings with various people so that you can sort of get the lay of the land. We also offer paid internships. Not very much, but it's something. Not very much, but it's something. Okay, so what do we do? Well, as an organization, we have a legal department, and I'll get to a little more to that later on. But we also have a division, which we call the Women's Empowerment Forum. That was started about a year and a half ago, and the idea of the Women's Empowerment Forum is to get women, mostly Arabs, together to talk about issues that are relevant to them. Issues such as gender equality, issues such as domestic violence, and sort of get those out there. At the same time, we try to get them to do mentorship programs for younger women to help them in their career developments and that sort of stuff. We have NALA, which is a National Arab American Lawyers Association. That's, of course, for lawyers. And that's not a bar association. It's more of an association where we can tap into for legal advice and we can refer cases to. We also have an initiative called Tarath, which is the Arabic word for culture. What we do is we use culture. We use our culture to try to break down stereotypes. So when we do a cultural event, it's not a hafla. We don't do it for ourselves. We have fun, we dance, but we try to do cultural events that would be of interest to non-Arabs, to bring them in and to show them what Arabs are. Nowadays, if somebody says an Arab, what do they think of? What do Americans think of? They think of terrorists. They think of belly dancing. They think of a gile, which they call the hookah. Okay? And they may think of Hamas, but they're not sure if that's Arab or Israeli. Right? That's the limited extent of what they think. Then they also think that all Arabs are Muslims, and all Muslims are Arabs. Right? They don't realize that actually 70% of Arabs in this country are actually Christian. Only about 18 to 20% of Muslims in this country are actually Arab. The largest piece of Muslims in the United States are, anybody know? Yep, African American Muslims. They represent, I think, roughly 20-25% of the Muslim population. Our organization, we don't get involved, we're secular. We don't get involved with religion. We have Christians, we have Muslims. We have Jews. We have Druze. Okay? We have Sunni, we have Shia. We have Catholic, we have Orthodox. Okay? Two things we don't talk about. We don't talk about religion, because that's none of our business, and we're here for everyone. Two, we don't get involved in internal Arab disputes over there. We are not pro this, anti that. Okay? We deal with issues pertaining to the treatment of Arabs in this country, or with Arabs that want to come to this country. You know, refugee issues, asylum issues, and stuff like that. We do deal with issues that deal with Muslims, just because they kind of sort of overlap Arabs. Part of our community are Muslims. So, for example, when the Abercrombie and Fitch went before the Supreme Court, you guys know what the Abercrombie and Fitch case is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I don't have to repeat it. We filed what's called an amicus curiae brief. Brief to the court, which is called the Friends of the Court, which we tried to give them most amicus briefs to. What they do is they try to give the court a perspective other than the two litigants, something that they may not come up with. So we submitted a report that dealt with the cultural aspects of Arabs, in particular of Muslim women, because they didn't hire this woman because they said she didn't fit the look profile that they're used to. We told them, and in our brief we wrote, hey, Muslim women wear the hijab, they can be hip too. Okay? They could be stylish. We said, we went through the Abercrombie and Fitch website, we said, look, Abercrombie and Fitch sells scarves. Those scarves can be used by women as a hijab. So we kind of showed them how absurd the Abercrombie and Fitch case was. Now we did that again, not because it was a Muslim issue, but because it was an issue that affected a large section of our community, Muslim women. We also dealt with the issue, just to stay on Supreme Court cases, there was also the issue regarding the designation of Jerusalem on passports. Anybody familiar with that issue? What happened was, several years ago, Congress passed a bill. Now on that bill they attached a rider. That rider said, in essence, that if somebody wanted to, they could have the term Jerusalem, Israel put on their passport, if they chose to do so. And now, slavery, now it just says Jerusalem. There is no Israel, no Palestine, no nothing. President Bush at the time, Jr., W., he signed the legislation, but he put a signing statement next to that portion of the bill. And he basically says, this is, I'm paraphrasing, this is unenforceable because it interferes with the president's right to do foreign policy. Of course, the court case came in. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And we filed an amicus brief in that case. Again, we gave them the perspective of a Palestinian who was born and occupied East Jerusalem. We said there is disparate treatment for that individual, because that individual does not have the option of putting Jerusalem, Palestine. He has no option at all. In fact, two of the Supreme Court justices picked up on that argument, and they asked questions pertaining specific to that issue. That issue was an 8-2 decision that affirmed the president's rights to conduct foreign policy and struck that provision out. So from now on, you'll see on the passport, it simply, if you were born in Jerusalem, it'll only say Jerusalem. It won't say Israel, it won't say Palestine. That is sort of the extent to when we get involved in foreign policy. Otherwise, we're just dealing with local issues. Some of the things that we're dealing with, the Syrian and Yemeni issue. We petitioned the Department of Homeland Security. We got what's called temporary protective status for Syrians and Yemenis who are here in this country, but are out of status. For example, they came here as visitors, or they came here as students, okay? But their visa had expired. So because we were able to get this designation to them, they're able to stay in this country, and they're able to work as long as the conflicts in their countries continue. Okay, the idea is, inshallah, one day it stops. When the conflicts do stop, it's only temporary. They will then have to go back. So we were able to get that both for the Syrians and to the Yemenis. We also work on refugee issues. We do asylum cases for the refugees. We have been working on increasing the number of refugees coming into this country from Syria and Iraq. I know, people heard that right now the president has put a new cap of 100,000 total refugees That means from all over the world, we're only going to take in 100,000. Okay? Of that, a minimum of 10,000 will come from Syria. We think that's incredibly small. To give you an idea, Canada, a country that's nowhere near our size economically, is taking in about the same amount. Germany's taking in a couple 100,000. We're taking in 10,000. So what we did is we happen to sit on the, actually I, through the organization, sit on the executive board of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. It's basically the umbrella group of all the civil rights organizations in the country. It includes the NAACP, it includes the LASA, it includes the ADL, it includes everybody, about 200 different national organizations. We were able to talk to the Leadership Conference, and the Leadership Conference actually issued a letter under the Leadership Conference's letterhead demanding that the President increase the number of Syrian refugees allowed into this country. And this is sort of what we do. We like to build coalitions. So when we did this, it wasn't just the Leadership Conference signing on. It was us signing. We signed the letter. So the Leadership Conference, and my name is right here. But also on that letter signing was the NAACP, was LARASA, and the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which we have a sort of an agreement with. The ADL, those issues that we are in agreement with, we work with. Those issues we don't agree with them, well, we'll agree to disagree. But we work with anybody that's willing to work with us regarding civil rights, and only civil rights. One of the big issues, I'll say that, let me see, just going through. One of the things that we also deal with is the Voting Rights Act. We work through the work again with the Leadership Conference to try, the Voting Rights Act was passed about 50 years ago this year. The Supreme Court has basically wiped it clean. They've taken out any enforcement provisions out of it. We're working with a lot of other civil rights groups to get the Congress to pass new legislation that will include the enforcements. We also do issues with housing discrimination. We do employment discrimination. We do issues with hate crimes. Recently we saw a big uptick in hate crimes and employment discrimination and hate mail right after a few months ago. We had sort of the perfect storm, I call it. You had what was happening with ISIS, ISIL-Daesh, however you want to call it. You had what happened with in France with Charles Hebdo. And you had the American Sniper movie that came out, which had a very bad portrayal of Arabs in there. We actually sent letters to Clint Eastwood and to ask him to make a statement regarding some of the hateful rhetoric that was coming out because of the movie. He didn't do it, but the studio did. So all three of those sort of came together all about the same time, and we saw a huge uptick in threats. We saw a huge uptick in discrimination cases and hate crimes, and right about the time we also had the tragic murders of the 3 students in Chapel Hill. So those are sort of the issues that we work with regarding discrimination and hate crimes. We also do, what we've started to do is deal with the issues, this is what pertains to you guys a lot, dealing with the issue of discrimination on college campuses. And that can take several different forms. One, professors discriminating against Arabs and Muslims regarding grading, discrimination regarding acceptance to colleges, discrimination regarding college scholarships. Those are 3 extremely difficult things to prove, but they happen. They do happen. The 4th thing we're dealing with is what I call campus political bullying. Come on in. What I call, as I said, what I call campus political bullying. That is what we're seeing more and more on campuses, is that students are being bullied to basically keep their mouths shut when it comes to their political views. Again, I do not advocate the harassment of any individual. Okay? I think we need to be respectful of all political points of view. But at the same time, other people need to be respectful of our political point of views. So as long as people are expressing themselves in a respectful manner, that they're not, threatening anybody, they should have the right to express their political views. But what we're seeing happen across college campuses is that individuals are starting to file complaints with college honor boards, college ethics boards, claiming that because somebody else exercised their rights to free speech, that I feel that that this was a harassing or a harassment. It was harassment. Okay. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the ethical boards to stamp down on political speech. We've worked with different groups, including the SJPs. About a couple weeks ago, we took a bunch of student groups to the Department of Education so they can explain to the DOE what's been going on. Because remember, most colleges, and I'm not talking about the private ones, are very difficult. Because remember, First Amendment only applies to who? Government actors. So if you're at a private school, they can curtail your political speech. You don't have First Amendment rights at private schools and private universities. Okay? But there are some tricks. If they accept government money, we can argue that, well, you cannot use government money in a way that's suppressing political speech. You can make that argument. If you're at a public university college, that's open game. They are not allowed to express. They're not allowed to suppress political views. The college campus is what? The open market space of political ideology. Okay? You're supposed to go to college so you can get exposed to different political views. All right? The American democracy, they say, is the toughest in the world. Why? Why? Because you have to protect, to your dying breath, an individual's right to say things that you may abhor. That's their right. That's what the First Amendment says. I don't have to agree with you, but I have to respect your right to say it. And that holds true for everybody. But at the same time, our own political views cannot be trampled against. We also have those same rights. And that's what we sort of were working with. The other issue we've been doing is we've been working with sort of the Black Lives Movement, because we recognize the Black Lives Movement is our movement, is also very important to the Arab American community. We sent some staffers down to Ferguson to help out with what's going on in Ferguson. We sent attorneys up to Baltimore so they can provide legal services for the various protesters who are out there. At our last convention, we held 3 different panels that dealt with Black Lives Matters. We brought in a group of people to speak about how the Black Lives Movement has changed the civil rights movement overall. Okay, because this is probably one of the most transformative movements the civil rights movement has seen in a long time. So we brought people in to discuss how that has changed everything. We brought people to discuss the connection between the Black Lives Matter movement and what we as Arabs and Muslims are happening here. Because our own people are being, profiled, targeted, beat up by police, so forth and so on. Okay? It may not, we don't, there aren't as many Arabs or Muslims being killed, thank God, as the African Americans, but there is a similarity. So we're trying to get our own people, because some of our people, especially the older ones, don't get the connection. And we're trying to show them that this is our movement as well as anything else. Because it represents what we're trying to ask for, and that is respect from the police officers. That is for dignity. So we've trying to sort of make that connection. We're also trying to make the connection between what's happening here with the Black Lives Matter and what's happening in Palestine, in the West Bank, to Palestinians and there. Because there is a connection of police brutality, of extrajudicial killing, and so forth and so on. So we're trying to make those connections. And we think it's very important. It's very important that we as Arabs get involved and help out in the Black Lives Matter. Because again, we're about reaching out and making networking and building coalitions. Okay? And we cannot expect other people to help us if we're not willing to provide them the same sort of assistance. And we're trying to really sort of encourage our students and our members to engage other people. And at this point, I want to hear from you guys. What you guys think? What are the issues that's coming up that's affecting your campuses? What are the issues that's important to you? And and see where you're going. Because you guys, the organization is about you guys, ultimately. Because in 10, 20 years, you will be the organization. If you're not the organization, there will be no organization. So I'm trying right now to get more engagement from the students. So please, it's open discussion. I only ask people to be respectful of one another and their space. But
So if anyone just raise their hands and I'll bring them the microphone.
again, you don't just have to ask me a question too. If you guys want to have a,
I'm not a student. I'm the director of the International Center.
okay.
And I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you. Is it working? Because
You gotta talk closer.
I'm the director of the International Center, and I want to thank you for being here. You couldn't be here at a better time.
thank you.
We've had some tension lately. The International Center is trying to serve as a place of dialogue and conversation. We're having International Education Day next week, so thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being. The first one's a softball. Thank you.
Don't be shy, people.
Yeah. Feel free.
Make sure you close to the microphone.
Excuse me, Speaker, do you believe that you guys are being stereotyped, and that's why you should join the Black Lives Matter?
No, I think we should join the Black Lives Matter because it's the right thing to do. Okay? Ultimately, that's what it is. I'm just what I'm trying to do is connect it to what we're going through because a lot of it has to do with it. I mean, it affects us. But ultimately, everybody should get involved with it because ultimately it is the right thing to do.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna speak really loudly.
Please.
So I feel like the source of hate, especially within the United States, comes from the media. You know, they instill this sense of like fear mongering amongst Muslims and Arabs, and like you mentioned, with that recent movie that came out, The American Sniper, we always feel like Arabs are portrayed in such a barbaric and inhumane way. You know, they're always either like, you know, hacking or like screaming Allah Akbar, you know, and that's the image that people get, especially as students. I feel like that's their only source. So in your opinion, like within your organization, what do you guys do in regards to like Hollywood or the media? Because technically we're not really giving a voice in that sense.
We do. We have, we've engaged with Hollywood. I don't know if people, it's not really Hollywood, but I don't know if people saw what happened with Walmart with the Halloween.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because they took a costume that that was produced last year. Okay? And it was called the Fagin Nose. Anybody knows the reference to Fagin? Fagin was not a character from Oliver Twist. It was a very stereotypical and derogatory Jewish character. Okay? It was a Jewish character with a big hook nose, who was evil, you know, had the worst characteristics of what people of what Jewish people were. And it was extremely racist. Okay? The ADL went after the organization, excuse me, the company that was selling it, and they ended up pulling it. Great, right? Well, a year later, that same company introduced the same exact nose, but called it a sheikh nose. Okay? All right? Same exact nose. So we took action, and actually we spoke to, Walmart was selling it, a few other people were selling it. Both Walmart and Amazon pulled it after we sort of took action. There was another instance of what happened about a year ago when ABC Family bought a script called Alice in Arabia. They were going to produce this sort of hour drama / comedy. And the premise of this whole movie was they had a young lady who was in high school. Her mother was Saudi. Her father was American. Okay? You know, she was going through your typical high school type angst, arguing with her parents. She was fighting. She wanted to go out with her boyfriend, go to a party, and her parents wouldn't let her. Well, one morning she comes home, or she wakes up and she finds out that her parents had died in a car accident. Okay, so this is the premise of the whole show. While she's sitting in the hospital, a very distinguished older gentleman walks in. He says, "I'm your grandfather." She says, "Well, I thought you were dead. I was told you were dead." No, I'm your grandfather, and I'm a member of the Saudi royal family. This is what he tells. This is what happens. He says, "Come with me to Saudi Arabia, meet your family." She says, "Okay." She goes back, and what happens? according to the script. He takes her passport. He imprisons her in a house of only women. So, and he, makes her, wear the hijab and the niqab and everything. Okay? And so the whole thing was supposed to be this fish out of water tale of a young lady taken from America, modern, liberal, and taken and plucked into Saudi Arabia, oppressive and conservative, type thing. Okay? So we, again, contacted ABC, what the heck's going on here? Their response was, no, don't worry, it'll get better, you'll see, just let us do it. And we're like, the grandfather kidnaps the girl. Where do you go from that makes it better? So we had the dialogue with ABC. They ended up killing the script. The script was never made. We've had issues with Disney. The original Aladdin song. Okay, we worked with them to change that song. Okay, so yes, the things are coming out of Hollywood are very bad, but there are things we can do. The biggest thing I tell people when it comes to stereotypes is the best ambassadors are you. Okay, it's about the one-on-one contacts, the contacts with your neighbors, the contacts with your friends. If they see what we truly are, hospitable, kind, loving people, then what they see on TV is not going to match what they see in real life. So if they say, well, if they see this horrible thing that's on the media or the TV, and they're going to say, well, I don't know, I got my friend here, Ahmed, or Muna, or whatever, she's Arab, she's nothing like that. What are they talking about? So it's about one-on-one connection, and it's, again, racism is not generally, people sometimes are racist, I said sometimes, are racist not because they're evil people, it's because they don't know any better. So sometimes it's about education. And it's about educating. Some people are just racist because they're evil, bad people. You're not going to fix those people, unfortunately. But, that's the way it is. I feel so stared at. Yeah, please.
So if we were to attack this discrimination and racism, would you do it by leading by example or just kind of going out and educating people?
I'm sorry, attacking discrimination?
And the racism.
And racism? No, it's a multi-fold attack. I mean, you can't just, you got to do it on different levels. And it all depends on the situation. If somebody got fired because of they're Arab or they're Muslim or they're black or they're Indian or they're Chinese, then there's only thing you can do is just file a lawsuit. Okay? But what I'm saying is some of the tendencies of people that have preperception of Arabs and Muslims, okay, that can be done. You can fix that through education. And then again, like I said, that's more of a one-on-one is the best remedy for that. That you show them directly what is Arab culture about. We did an event called one of our Tarath events last year was music from Baghdad to Andalusia. And what we tried to show was point out the connections between the music of the Arabic music and the music of Spain, in particular the flamenco and the Spanish gypsy music, because that's all based on Arabic music. Okay, it's all based on the rhythms of Arabic music. So we brought in a gentleman by the name of Simone Shaheen. I don't know if people famous oud player. We also brought in a singer from Tunisia named Sonia Mbarak, who sings Andalusian music. And then we brought in performers from Spain, flamenco and a guitarist. One section we had, Simone was playing the oud, but he was playing it in a classical Spanish guitar style. And as he was playing it, the flamenco dancer was dancing flamenco style to the oud, to show the connection. And we brought in people from the Latin community, and they were intrigued. It was very, very uplifting. It was a fun time. But that's how you break down some of the stereotypes. I don't want to talk too much, so what do you got?
Thank you again for coming, and I want to thank the people for coming as well. I have two things, a comment that goes into a question. The first thing is I feel like one of our biggest problems is we face racism, but we are racist amongst ourselves. And it's so hard to get Arabs together to face racism against Arabs when you have 6 different organizations on campus for each Arab country rather than coming together to do things as a whole. That's one. Second, You find people racist against each other, inside the same Arab country too, because they start talking religion. And the big thing is to take away religion out of the whole matter. So my question is, how do we get more politically active as one, rather than dealing with this part, and then getting to nothing, and make us weak in front of others?
That's the $6 billion question. The $6 billion question, inflation. The first thing we need to get our own house in order, because unfortunately we do have some racism within our own culture. And it's a shame because our own people, Arabs run the gambit. Skin tone, hair tone. I have family members that are red hair, freckles. You have people from Egypt, the Nubians, the Sudanese, totally different skin complexion. So we ourselves need to get on the same page. And we need to stop and break down the racism within our own. Because I did, when we came out and supported the Black Lives Matter, we did get a backlash, mostly from the older generation. And I thank God it was only the older generation, because that tells me that you guys are thinking differently. Okay? So the answer may be with the next generation. If you guys need to get engaged, you guys need to work on issues that are not necessarily your own. Again, because it is the right thing to do. You need to talk to other minority organizations. You need to build coalitions. And when you see racism, you need to attack it not just as a specific ethnic group, whatever, as an entire campus. Look what happened with recently in Missouri. Okay, with them forcing out the president. I thought that was remarkable what they did. A football team. It started out with only African American football players. Basically said, we are not going to play anymore until the president quits. The coach comes out and basically supports his own team, and the entire football team, both black and white, supported them and said, we're with you. Okay? Now, do you think that the president would have stepped down if that didn't happen? You think he cares that one individual was having a hunger strike? No. But they got together as one community and banded together to fight a cause that might not have been theirs, but was an important cause to them. So I think that's the best way. But yeah, we have to deal with our own house. We have to deal with the internal racism that we have. The famous A word.
Oh, yeah,
Okay?
definitely.
We have to deal with it. It is what it is, but we have to deal with it. And we have to stop using it. I didn't even know it was a racial slur until probably I was 20 years old, because I grew up with it thinking that's what it was.
What is it?
The Arab world, the Arab world, Abid. The Arab world, Abid, means, literally means servant. So that's why you'll have people named Abid, servant of God, servant of Muhammad, Abdul. But sometimes it's used regarding black people. So that's something that we need to come to terms with as a community, and we need to stop doing it.
My question is, what do you think the best way to approach people of that sort that refuse to change their habits, that tend to believe what they believe? Because you have these people in these communities where you confront them and you tell them that this is wrong, you can't use that word, and they go, oh, that's not what I mean, I just mean, black, and I've been brought up saying this, and it depends on intention, but you tell them it's not intention, the word is wrong, and therefore you need to change it.
Again, there's nothing you're going to be able to say and or do that's going to knock any sense into those individuals. Okay? You can call people out when they use it, call them out when they're wrong, and then you and your friends don't use it, because eventually it will die out. Because most of the people that use that word are older, or I hate to say this, but less educated.
Yeah.
So if the kids stop using it, then eventually it just. Our issue is that it's not only used in a derogatory. There are people who are named Abid.
Right.
Yeah.
Their actual name's Abdullah, and they call them.
Yeah, they do. But you're right. But that's the way it is.
We have this gentleman over here, and then we'll tell some.
Please. Yes.
I understand you deal primarily with the
I wouldn't say nothing has changed. Look, generally, as an organization, we stay out of inter-Arab disputes. We don't get involved in what's happening in Syria. We don't get involved in what's happening in Yemen or Egypt. We do touch on issues regarding Palestine, because the Palestine-Israel issue is so intrinsic and so tied up to U.S. policy, both domestic and international. So we'll touch upon that as for a while. We do say that we support the democratic aspirations of the people of the Middle East. We condemn human rights and violence, no matter the perpetrator, no matter the victim. That's sort of my thing going into this. The issue with Palestine has changed. I mean, you may not have changed necessarily with the U.S. government, but things are changing. The UN just flew the Palestinian flag again. It's small, but it's symbolic. The European Union is starting to kind of rethink what's going on and their positions regarding what's happening in Palestine. You have the BDS movement that's working out there. I think that's really is the one thing that's really scaring the Israelis. And you have college campuses that are starting to switch. Our government, look, the South African apartheid, okay? Where did that movement start in the United States? It started on the college campuses, okay? It was the college campuses that came out and said, apartheid is wrong, and we need to stop it. Our government wasn't saying that. The general electorate, they weren't saying that. It's the college campuses that began the ball rolling. They convinced people, and eventually it steamrolled into a huge movement. The anti-Vietnam movement, the anti-war movement, where'd that start? It started on the college campuses. Eventually, it became mainstream. The U.S. government did not take the anti-war movement seriously until when? Until they started seeing the mothers, the fathers out there protesting. At first, it was just a bunch of crazy kids, these radical students. But when they started seeing white America protesting, they started seeing mothers, grandparents out on the streets, that's when they started taking it real seriously. So I think I see a big change on college campuses regarding the issue. You got to continue the momentum.
I have a second question. I don't want to take away time from anyone else to make a question. But are you aware of any efforts to lobby the government to make Arab Americans an official minority? If so,
yeah, and I forgot to bring this up. There's a couple of different things going on. Right now, Arabs are defined as white. I always tell people, I tell this to government officials, you want to define me as white, treat me as white. Mm-hmm. Treat me as white at the borders. Okay? Treat our kids white in the school systems. Because they're not. And if they're not, then why are we counted white? We're not even other. We are absolutely 100, and I'll explain to you why we're white. Back at the turn of the century, the United States passed laws called the anti-Asian laws. Racist laws stating that Asians cannot be U.S. citizens. Now, if you know, the Asians were actually the last people to get the right to vote. Okay, because they weren't allowed to be citizens. Not because they were not allowed to be citizens. And those were geared towards the Chinese, the Japanese. At some point, somebody in the government said, well, they called them Syrians at the time, because that's what they thought we all were, because it was Greater Syria. That's in Asia. So we should maybe include them into these anti-Asian laws. Our community had nothing to do, couldn't figure out, the best way they figured out to fight this was they filed a court case trying to say, no, we're not Asians, we're white. We're white, we're harmless. And they actually won the case. So they got declared white. Why? So they wouldn't be included into these racist laws. Well, we've been fighting that designation ever since. So now we're white. It affects us. It affects us drastically. You know what? It also affects other minorities too. Because look at Dearborn. Dearborn is 90% white according to the statistics. Yeah, why? Because Arabs are white, according to them. That affects redistricting, especially when you're talking about minority majority districts. Has a drastic effect on how districts are now cut apart, because we tend to congregate. We live in specific areas: Chicago, Detroit, New York, Southern California. We aren't spread out. So where we are large numbers, and we will have a drastic effect on that. I sat on a board regarding state police in New Jersey. And we were looking at police officers who were stopping minorities, pulling them over, state troopers. And there was a consent decree where the Department of Justice came in and required the state police to do certain things. One of the things they said was you have to, every time you stop somebody, you must come out with a report and you must indicate what race they were. So we knew that if you're targeting blacks, African Americans in a certain area, if 80% of your stops are African American in an area that's only 5% African American, then we know you're doing something wrong. Okay? It's logical, right? In New Jersey, there are a couple places that have a huge number of Arabs. So when the state trooper, the head of the state police was testifying to us, he said, oh, in this area, 90% of all stops were white people. I said, really? So what about the Arabs? Well, how do you classify Arabs? He said, well, we class them as white. You see where that, statistically, that can have an effect? That they may be targeting women who are wearing the hijab, but we will never know because we are classified as white. When we try to apply for social services, money for English as a second language, money for dealing with issues of disability, money for dealing with domestic violence, whatever. The first thing a municipality asks when they're giving out money is, how many of you live in this area? We can't tell them. We don't have the numbers. When we go to a congressman or a senator, say, we can't tell them how many Arabs live in his district. So we don't have the numbers. So what we're doing is, this has been about a 40-year battle with the Census Department. And as a compromise, we have sort of indicated that we would be okay, don't like it, but we're willing to swallow it, to have the MENA designation, Middle East, North Africa, on the census. So next census comes up, you will actually be able to check MENA. And then you'll actually be able to put specifically what you want to call yourself. Okay? Now we're fighting over the issue of, what is MENA? That's a different fight we're having with them. What we're also trying to do is trying to get minority designation for small businesses, so they can get the set asides. We need to do a disparity study, which we're trying to fund right now. Anything else? I talk too much. I'm a lawyer, so cut me off.
I have a question and a comment. Start with a comment. Going off what my friend Omar said about investing in the next generation being the most integral thing or step towards having a larger dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that we also need to ponder upon is educating the Arab youth about being proud of their history and
history. Khalil Gibran says, you know, basically, I forgot the quote he had, that somebody that doesn't know his culture doesn't know himself. I think that's extremely important. Regarding the religious holidays, that's a local issue. That's generally done by the campuses saying it, by the local board of eds declaring it, or by the state declaring it. The state can also declare it. That's not an issue we take the lead on because it's more of a religious issue. We will support other religious organizations that will, because we kind of sort of like to, you have Muslim organizations, you have Arab organizations. When it's a majority, it's a Muslim issue, we will support the Muslim organizations. When it's an Arab issue, the Muslim organizations will support us when we take the lead. So I don't want to, that's generally, it's their issue. We don't want to step on people's foot. So very respectful of other people's, what their issues are or not. But again, it does affect a large portion of our own community that we will support them and we'll help them any way we can. We helped New Jersey with a couple of school districts out there, and they actually enacted Eid as a holiday. They did that. Sorry, and the other question, I'm sorry? Okay.
Yeah, you talked about coalition building and building one-on-one relationships. And someone had mentioned there's a number of different organizations that are fairly similar but maybe competing. It's been my experience, what I've been learning is most social change comes when a lot of diverse organizations join together to achieve common goals. And there are going to be a lot of different organizations, different groups with their own interests, their own concerns. That will always be the case. But what I found is, more often than not, we have more interests in common than we do have differences. And when we do build the one-on-one relationships that you were talking about, we learn that. And just some examples. Here on campus, there's probably 100 different student organizations. But every day there's an event that 5 different organizations are working together to sponsor. And in a bigger picture, throughout the country. For instance, blacks didn't end slavery. It was a bunch of people doing what, like you said, because it's right. People acting because it's right. Civil rights movement. There weren't powerful black lobbyists lobbying all the black politicians in Washington to change the civil rights laws. There were
very powerful congressmen.
Coalitions built.
You had a very powerful Congressman Powell.
Yeah. But there were powerful coalitions that everyone joined in because it's right. And so I'm glad you talked about that.
Look, the Arab, I always equate the Arab, and before everybody leaves, I have pamphlets down if anybody wants, I have more. If you'd like to join, we have $25 membership for students. And we are also trying to re-energize our student movement. So anybody interested in possibly doing a campus chapter, we would love to talk to you. We don't like to step on toes of other organizations. And we, like I said, we work with them and we deal with more of the civil rights issues, not necessarily the cultural, not necessarily the religious. So if anybody wants to, let me know. What I equate the Arab community is very similar to Latino Hispanic community. Okay? We don't come from one country. We're 22 different countries. All right? We are several different religions, several different sects within those religions. Okay? But what binds everybody together is, like the Latinos and Hispanics, common language, common culture, for the most part. I mean, there are other things, but that's what it is. Why is somebody from Argentina, and somebody from Mexican, Latino, or Hispanic, or somebody from Puerto Rico and somebody from Chile? Because they have common language, common food, similar music. That's sort of what binds Arabs. So it's okay that the Lebanese have a club. It's okay that, the Egyptians have a club. That's fine. But at the end, they have to understand that they need to sort of coalition together and join together with the Latino groups and the African American groups. But that's key. That's key.
Okay. Thank you so much for your talk. It was really great. So my question is regarding when organizations on campus. So previously I went to a private institution, and I was part of the SJP there at Northwestern. And so a lot of the issue that student group, the SJP there, faced was kind of like the way that the financial office works is you have to be like a certain status, right? So they were facing a lot of problems receiving the different status levels so as to be a funded organization.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the steps that they had a big problem with was finding a sponsor. And often like the sponsor would have to be, the university sort of made it so that anytime an untenured professor would try and sponsor this organization, they would hammer them with, extra workload or various other things so as to kind of stifle the work of the SJP. So my question is kind of, would your organization be something, we have a sponsor and like all that stuff, it's fine now, but is that something that your organization would
We
be
do.
able to?
That's something we
Okay.
do. I have 3 attorneys on staff in DC. I also have an attorney in 1.5 attorneys. One attorney with a legal fellow in Dearborn, in Michigan. So we have attorneys that would look on that. But we also, like I said, we even do the coalition building in regards to that. We've worked with Palestine Legal, we've worked with SJPs, and we work with other organizations because we know it's everybody's got a concern regarding that. But there are things, private universities are very difficult, but not impossible because they take federal money. So sometimes that gives us a little hook to get into them, especially if it's a program that's funded. What we're seeing a lot of is you have an international studies program here. What we're seeing is a lot of Arab, Middle Eastern international programs being defunded by the Department of Education because of the Daniel Pipes, the Steve Emersons of the world, because they're claiming that they're teaching anti-Semitism. Okay? And they're being defunded. UCLA, theirs got defunded recently because of very hellacious and absolute false attacks that they were anti-Semitic. In fact, the director at the time was Israeli. So, I'm sorry, you were going to comment towards that?
We actually have a Title VI grant
Yeah.
for teaching Arabic language, so we're lucky.
My questions, you touched up upon the North Carolina shooting.
Sure.
I haven't kept up with it recently to know if they are still deciding about to attach hate crime or not. But my question is in regards to that, where sometimes or oftentimes, not just Arab Americans but other minorities, they face the idea that sometimes you're being hypersensitive on what they can consider or not. So my question is, for instance, when it's not obvious, say it's a female Arab American and she does not wear the headscarf, but she feels or he feels targeted in a racial way, how do you suggest to people to understand the difference if they were really targeted by hate or not? And how do you guys suggest how can you, because as you mentioned with students, it's hard to find out if the teacher was or wasn't, or like, what do you suggest
Well,
steps?
look, if somebody targets you, violence or harassment or whatever, it doesn't matter whether they're doing it because you're an Arab or because you're a woman. The thing is that they're doing it, and it's wrong. That's the basic. The first thing, especially when you look at hate crime, the federal hate crime law is sort of an enhancer. Okay? So what they basically mean is there is a crime, so you're going to get punished for that crime. The question is, does that crime trigger the hate crime statutes, thereby putting additional penalties on that individual? Okay, we're talking about crimes committed against people who are gay or lesbian, crimes committed against people who are black, just because they are black or just because they are gay or lesbian. There's sometimes that people are just bad people. They're going to target people they don't like you. They don't like your hair. They don't like the way you're dressed. They're just crazy. That happens. And so it's very tough to distinguish between when it rises to the level of a hate crime to trigger the federal statutes. Ultimately speaking, you report it, period. All right? You report it, and then figure out whether or not it's a hate crime. But it's got to be reported. In the case of what happened in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, At first they came out and they tried to say, well, this is a dispute over parking. I don't know about you, but I know people who get in dispute over parking don't get shot in the back of the head execution style. Okay? If you're in a fight and you're gonna, it's gonna be a crime of passion, you pull out your gun and you start shooting. You don't go behind them and shoot them execution style. So we tried to make that argument to the federal government, us along with other individuals. The thing is, the way the statute's set up, that the feds will only come in if they think the state is not handling it properly. Okay? Now North Carolina has a death penalty. Okay? Remember I told you, hate crimes is an enhancement. So if your crime says you're doing 5 years, but because it was a hate crime, then they add another 5 years. Well, if these people this guy gets sentenced to death, no more enhancements. Nothing worse you can do to them. And again, I'm not advocating for or against the death penalty. I'm just saying. So the Civil Rights Division has told us right now that they think that, right or wrong, that North Carolina is properly prosecuting the case. And until they don't see that, they're going to let them have it. We're trying to get them to say, look, it's very important for our community that you declare it a hate crime. If nothing else, then those words come out of your mouth, this is a hate crime. Hopefully they'll do it.
Well, just to kind of retouch upon that, but when I mentioned the hypersensitive comment, I mean, you see it in other, again, minorities. How would you advise people who, if they do face a situation like that, for themselves differentiate? It's not because there are situations where since it's at a heightened level that there is racism towards Arab Americans or Islamophobia, and some people might take anything as it's being against them because they're Arab or Muslim. How would you?
It's hard for me to sit here and to tell people you're being hypersensitive. It's very difficult because it's such a subject. It's them personally. I warn people though, do not claim it at every little drop of the hat. Why? Because eventually it'll start to sensitize people. Eventually people start criticizing Arabs, Muslims, or whatever. Oh, they're just crying about nothing. So you got to be careful of that. But I can't tell somebody, no, it wasn't a hate crime, or they didn't do it because you're Arab, because it's such a personal thing. And I don't know what the circumstances. I do caution them that report it and say, I think I might have been this. Okay? And if it is, it is. If it isn't, be careful.
And we want students to report it, please, if you feel biased. I was in a meeting with the Vice President of Student Affairs yesterday talking about this very topic, and his comment to the students was this: if we don't know about it, we can't help you. And so we can approach the Vice President's office, the Dean of Students, myself, other people that you respect on campus, and it will go to the right place for that dialogue to take place.
Any more questions?